Yo, now it's the Red Blue podcast crew. Reviewing flicks, both old and new. Red and blue, not political. Nah, man, chill. It was Marvel versus DC till we lost that thrill. Don't stress the episode, don't ask the season. We double up franchises, don't ask for a reason. Mochi's got rules that nobody gets. His takes on movies, they're wild as it gets. He's got Superbald Mac and Gray by his side, trying to keep it sane while they're in for the ride. Mochi's measures are out of control, but in the end he's got the final role. Yeah, that blue podcast, come check the scene. Movies old and new, know what I mean?
And we are live talking about movies. We talk about Immaculate and the first Omen. How are you, Superbald?
I'm good, yeah.
I'm doing great. What about you, Gray?
Yeah, I'm here. That's about all that I can say for a Tuesday.
At least you're there, and that's another Tuesday. I guess it's perfect. It's the perfect time for this. So, this time around, I'm the one that chose that movie, these two movies. And
No, you were right the first time.
what did you say?
You were right the first time. It's essentially that movie. It's kind of the same movie twice.
Yeah, well, not exactly the same, but it's similar. It's two horror flick about religion. So for once, the choices actually makes sense to be paired up. I think I might be wrong. Am I wrong, Gray?
No, this is the best pairing, I guess, so far. It makes the most sense. They're both horror. They're both from the same year, within like 2 weeks of each other. They were both in theater at the same time. But yeah, it was just one of the weirdest releases of last year. I guess the fact that these scripts were so similar, they deal with very similar concepts, and then man, there's even like 3 scenes that are almost like shot for shot the same in each of them. Interesting choice.
It's like somebody copied somebody else's homework.
But since it all came out at the same time, they didn't really copy each other. That's the most fascinating thing about it, I think. And that made me think a lot. When you look back at all of the movies we had last year, there was a lot of religious movies. We had Heretic, we had these two, and I'm sure if you think more, you can find more. You've seen more movies than me, Gray. Is there any other religious movie you could think of?
There were a few, but I'm kind of blanking on it. There was like a bunch of different possession ones. Meryl Streep was actually in one. Now I'm blanking on the name of it, but it was like The Deliverance or something. There were quite a few of them, but there always are. It's a trope. Religious horror is a thing.
Yeah. So I guess.
And what happens is when one particular movie becomes popular, a bunch of other movies in the same genre, same subject will come out after that to coast on it. So that could just be a case of that.
So I guess, because you got the spotlight, I will let you start on that one, Superbald. What did you think of Immaculate, the Sydney Sweeney one?
Yeah, I went into this kind of blind. It's only when I started watching the first Omen that I realized that these movies were similar and, well, essentially the same movie. I didn't know anything about it, hadn't heard of it. I haven't seen anything else from that director. I had not seen any of the actors in anything else. The only person in this movie who I knew who she was Sydney Sweeney. But I haven't seen anything else that she's in. I liked it. I think it's the weaker of the two movies, though. Some good things about it, though. Good performances. Sydney Sweeney was amazing in this movie. Other actors, mostly Italian actors whom I don't know, were good. I did very much like her friend, who's I can't remember the name of her character, but the nun who basically became a nun just to have somewhere to go. I loved her. I loved her line about when Sydney Sweeney's character said that her parish had closed. She asked, "Well, did the priest get in trouble?" I love that. um, I found it hilarious when the head priest or whatever his name was asked her, "How's your Italian coming along?" And she answered, "Come si, come so," which is French. There was good camera work, good lighting. Not tinted blue like most movies. Some orange, but that was mostly scenes with candlelight and stuff, and I found that was very appropriate. Very good color palette in this movie. Um, a lot of things, though, I think were left unexplained. We don't. They didn't really explain why her body was failing her. Like she lost a tooth, she pulled out a nail, but it didn't explain why that was happening to her. Was it the baby sucking her life force out of her? Like they didn't explain any of that, and I didn't really get why they were branding her feet with the cross, and they didn't really explain what the point of that was, and or they didn't explain who was that other priest helped who helped to do that. The dude with the mustache who looked like Frank Zappa. They didn't. We never saw him again. They didn't explain who that guy was. Um, so I think the script was like a bit underdeveloped, undercooked. There was some things missing. I think maybe one of the reasons so many religious movies are coming out, especially movies related to this topic, it was something I was reading online. Some people think it might have to do with the political situation in the states, especially with the overturning of Roe versus Wade. There's actually a quote I wrote down here that I really liked. It said, uh, it was by someone named Bilge Abiri, said America is getting movies about people forced into monstrous births by religious institutions worried about their growing irrelevance. I love that. As an atheist, I'm very pro religion going into irrelevance, but that's another story. Um, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it.
Interesting. And to follow up to what you said, maybe it was more on the line where she lost tooth and weird things are happening to her. Maybe it's because that birth wasn't natural, and a good way they depicted that not natural birth was the fact that baby didn't cry when he was born, and usually
True.
baby they
True.
do cry. So I don't know. Maybe
And
that's an end.
and in this movie, it was a lot less obvious that there was something there was like a supernatural element going on, because it was more. The more the impression I got, it's because the baby was just genetically engineered, but I think they kind of left enough room to maybe say, well, maybe there's especially at the end, we don't hear the baby cry and she decides to kill it. It could be that instead of being the savior, it was the Antichrist. Maybe, I don't know.
And to go back to what I kind of mentioned, there's another religious movie that came out, but that wasn't horror this time around. That was Conclave. That was like the Pope dies and they elect a new one, but that's still religious. And
I guess it depends on your point of view. It could be a horror film. If you're devoutly Catholic and you do like the traditions, that goes starkly in contrast with a lot of it. So it depends where your stance is.
So I will let Gray go on with.
Yeah, as a French Canadian, I have a lot of disdain for the Catholic Church. They were very dominant in our culture for a long time, and they did a lot of damage.
We kicked them out proudly, and this one.
There's a reason why we refer to that period as La Grande Noirceur, the Great Darkness.
The Great Darkness.
Anyways,
wow, that sounds so beautiful. The way the Great Darkness is said in French. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, so I don't know. these are interesting films. It is weird that they were both released within like 2 weeks of each other. So they're definitely going to get comparisons, and then the subject matter is just so damn similar. But when you look at Immaculate, its budget is estimated at $9 million, and the first Omen is estimated at $30 million. So this is less than a third of the budget of the bigger one, the franchise horror, where this one is its own kind of thing. And this one does have its own, I don't know, kind of history to it, Immaculate. So originally, now I can't remember exactly what year it was. Oh, it was 2014. Sydney Sweeney had auditioned for this script, and it ended up never getting made. It was not about a nun at that time. It was about a girl in boarding school, but she really liked what they were doing with this script. So she kind of followed it, even though it was a failed project. And then she did end up kind of getting the rights to it. And then she basically used all of her money, from what I understand, from Madame Web to really finance this. And then she leveraged that into the production of this, where she did hire the original writer who wrote that script that she really loved of the first version of Immaculate, and then had them actually kind of, okay, so it's 10 years later. Let's age up the character. Let's make it so that, it's not Sydney Sweeney playing some 14-year-old or whatever. Instead, she's going to play a nun, like somebody about her own age. It's kind of interesting, the story behind this, how much passion she had, and that she was willing to take, obviously, a paycheck, but to do something much better than Madame Web. I can understand why a lot of people would like the first Omen a little bit more. I don't know. Immaculate, it kind of speaks to me a little bit more, and I guess it kind of depends which version of horror you're going for. Like you mentioned, this one is a very human story. Like, I guess there's a bit of supernatural, like how exactly you'd save DNA from like 2,000 years ago and use that. I guess that's a bit magical, but aside from that, it seems like it's a very human horror, where a lot of what we're seeing in the first Omen is kind of more, I don't know, fantastical. It's supernatural, where this, it seems like they're trying to bring about something, but it's slightly different. So this wasn't super successful, but it grossed about 35 million, but that's off of a $9 million budget. So they made like over 3 times, almost 4 times their budget on this, where I think the first Omen just, so they had a 30 million and then they got like 53 million. So they didn't quite double their budget on this one. So it does seem like, all in all, this one did a little bit better as far as just recouping the initial budget. But a lot of people are kind of talking more about the other one, the first Omen. It does seem to be a lot of people's favorites.
It's more known, I think. That may be the biggest reason why it's more talked about, because more people
it is a
know
franchise.
about that. Yeah.
I mean, like, it is kind of the go-to kind of religious horror franchise, even though they get progressively worse as the series goes on. But that first Omen, it's a classic.
I have never seen any of the Omen movies, and to be honest,
Really?
it's only when we
Me
got
neither.
to the very end of the movie that I realized that this was part of the Omen franchise. When he said, "Oh, they gave the baby a name, they call it Damien." I haven't never seen the Omen, but I know that is the name of the child in the first Omen movie.
Oh,
It's only
so good. Gregory
it's only
Peck.
when we got to that I realized that this was part of the Omen franchise. I thought it was just unrelated. It just had a similar name.
Which makes sense. There's so many of them that have kind of done that. But oh man, the original Omen is so worth seeing. It's a Richard Donner one.
It's definitely on my very long watch list. So I'll get to it eventually.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm just saying, like, he gave us classics like Lethal Weapon, Superman, the Goonies. Richard Donner knows what he's doing, and they kind of originated this religious horror. And so I guess we'll talk about that one a little bit more when we get into the first Omen. But yeah, that first one is so worth seeing. The subsequent sequels and the remake are not great. I would put The First Omen as the second, and that my favorite of that series. But yeah, getting back to Immaculate, I don't know. I really like what they're able to kind of do with this one. It didn't go exactly where I thought it was going to go. And man, the performance that Sydney Sweeney is able to put into this, just man, she goes above and beyond. Just that end. Out of all the movies that kind of stuck with me last year, just the fact that they cut out almost all the sound. You just hear screaming and then that horrible breathing, that kind of squelching breathing. Just man, that has really stuck with me. Sadly, I didn't get a chance to watch Immaculate again. I did watch both of them. I think it was like March when they came out last year. But I was able to rewatch The First Omen. But sadly, I didn't get a rewatch Immaculate. But I can still vividly remember a good portion of the end. I think the first two acts, they work pacing wise almost perfect for me. And then the third act, it feels so rushed, where all of a sudden now we're into like the secret laboratory. Now all of a sudden we're doing weird genetic testing experiments, if you will.
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying, that that a lot of things weren't explained, and I felt the movie the movie was just too short. It was 90 minutes. A movie like this to me should be at least like about 2 hours.
I think so. I think they really could have expanded upon that a little bit. I think it would have made you a little bit more satisfied with some of the explanation. So like they're trying to explain it. So the way that I took it, why she's like losing teeth and stuff, was the baby was sucking, the life, the good, whatever out of her. It wasn't exactly, the new savior. It was probably the opposite. It was probably a little Damien in there. But yeah, I guess I did want more explanation for all of that. And then it does seem like it's kind of like a B movie twist, where all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, so we're using the nail of Christ, or one of the nails that was used to put Christ on the cross, but somehow you have that and you're taking his DNA and you're going to keep trying to make babies out of it. It's definitely not a perfect film for me, but man, once you kind of get past that and you see Sydney Sweeney's escape from there, just all that she's willing to put into that, and then not only that, but the actual like culmination of it, just her performance just goes like to some crazy places that I didn't think I'd see, and that I haven't experienced from her in the past. I haven't watched all of Euphoria or anything like that. I caught some of it and was like, this isn't for me. I'd previously watched White Lotus, and Sydney Sweeney's in that, but she's not like the star of it. And then actually her friend in Immaculate, Sister Mary, who's Simona Tabasco, she actually stars in the other season of White Lotus, which is kind of weird that two stars of that show from two different seasons happen to just come together for this weird movie.
Sorry to cut you up, but you just reminded me something. I forgot about Sister Mary. There was a scene at the beginning of the movie that I liked, and it reminded me of a movie I saw a long time ago, when she wakes up in the coffin, buried alive, and with the lighter or the match, whatever. That reminded me of, have you ever seen the movie The Vanishing?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there's a scene very similar to that in The Vanishing.
Yeah. I remember what you're talking about, because we did cover The Vanishing like last year. I think maybe winter or so.
Something like that. Yeah, we covered both The Vanishing and Spoilos, the one that it was based off of. But yeah, that does harken back to a bunch of different things. It also kind of has some Kill Bill vibes with the bride alone in the coffin. But yeah.
Oh, right, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's true.
There's some interesting ways that they kind of, I don't know, fleshed out portions of this script. I think I liked a lot of the kind of side characters in this. The father, Tadishi, I think was his name. Alvaro Morte was the actor who was playing him, but he does have this certain charm to him where I don't know, I was uneasy, but at the same time you could see why this dude would be in charge. It's an interesting performance that I really appreciated compared to some of the priests in like The First Omen. I wasn't sure if I would quite believe that. And then it is interesting that the setting is kind of a place to take care of, like nuns on the decline. I don't think I've seen that in a film before, where it's kind of the younger nuns taking care of the older ones who maybe are having issues with either mobility or perhaps even their faculties aren't quite there. I guess it makes sense to me, but I hadn't quite thought of what do you do with retired nuns? Where would they go? Where I guess initially this was kind of again set at like a boarding school, and then they kind of switched it, and I really kind of like the change to the script. And then there's some really interesting performances in this. I like a lot of the kind of older nuns. They do feel like they are kind of they've been through something, and it kind of makes you wonder what it is. It made me interested in this mystery, and then the way that it's playing out, where you do see that they seem to get marked on the foot after they've gone through this, and apparently they can only go through this one time. It appears as the one was. Now I can't remember what her name was, but she was begging over and over again, like, let me try it again. Like I can do it this next time. I don't know, that scene also really stuck with me. It does seem like they are devout. They really are devout, and they do think that they are bringing about something special. It's an interesting take on it, where I like it a lot more than the take from the first Omen. And I think we'll get into that in a bit. I don't think there was quite as many fancy camera movements or anything that was quite as visually as spectacular. But again, they did have like 1/3 the budget. Seeing as how I haven't seen it for like 10 months, I cannot remember any of the music for the life of me. I do remember there is some interesting sound design, especially the very end. Everything cuts out except for Sydney Sweeney and then some other breathing. That is a really interesting choice, and it made it super, super tense. And the fact that they don't choose to show you what she sees, you just see it through her face. You have to live this experience through her performance. It all really rests on her shoulders, and I think she really does a great job with this. She's shown me that she actually has some chops. She's not just playing like some ditzy teen like I've seen her play in the past, or she's not just playing this, I don't know what you'd even call her in Madam Web, just a side character that dons a costume for 2 seconds. I don't know. She's kind of nothing. She's superfluous, but she's the one with glasses. But in this, like, everything is hinging on her performance, and she can go to some places, some really dark places. So yeah, I don't know. I really like what she was able to do with this, and I love how much passion she put into this project. The fact that it should have died like 10 years ago, and it shouldn't have been resurrected, except for she had a real passion for this particular story, and she wanted it told. I think that's really awesome, especially if she's willing to do something as horrible as Madam Web just for a paycheck, to then do something that she could actually be proud of. I think it was awesome that she became very popular last year. I wish people had known a little bit more about this film. I think it would have done a little bit more than Madam Web, but I guess they weren't really interested in her performance. That wasn't what a lot of people were gravitating towards. But yeah, I'm glad that she was able to kind of take it all in stride, and she did a really funny bit on SNL where it seems like she's really aware of everything. So yeah, I can't wait to see what she does next. And then you mentioned that you hadn't seen anything from this director before. From what I understand, this is his first film directing. He had written a bunch of other things, but this is a first-time director from what I
looked it up, and I think he only directed a few shorts before directing this, or maybe one feature length, but like something really, really low budget.
Yeah, so I think this was kind of an inexperienced crew, but to come out with this and then to make 3 times the budget back, good on them. I would like to see what all of them kind of do next.
I think that's a sign that you should have passion project, because they do well. They just do well.
I've said it before here, and I believe that adversity breeds creativity.
Yeah. Do you want to add
I think
anything?
so.
Here?
No, I just want to shit on your point really quick. Okay, so passion projects. Just think Megalopolis and what was the one? Horizon an American Saga chapter or dash chapter one. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes you invest millions upon millions and it just does not work.
Okay, some work. Okay,
What was the movie there, Heaven's Gate, that basically bankrupted a studio? It was a
Oh,
passion
wow.
project of what was his name? I can't remember who directed that, but that bankrupted the United Artists, and that led to them being sold to MGM or some other company.
Now I start to understand why studios are so reluctant to put out these passion projects. Okay, I resign.
Because it's a massive gamble. Sometimes it really pays off. Other times it doesn't work out.
I think a smaller budget passion project is awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know if we necessarily need like a Megalopolis or one of the highest budgeted westerns ever when are they really that profitable? It's a beautiful film. I like that one more than Megalopolis, the Horizon an American Saga chapter 1. But we didn't get chapter 2 or chapter 3 or chapter 4, and that's an issue.
That's tragic. You call it chapter 1 and there's no chapter 2 or above. Things happen, I guess. So, I really enjoyed that movie a lot. I was hooked from start to finish, and I really liked Sydney Sweeney, and she kind of redeemed herself for whatever Madame Web was with this movie. That's a good thing she did that after, because maybe that will wash away the sin that was Madame Web. Anyway, I will say that they can't leave, so they are kind of prisoner there, and that's interesting because religion is a prison for some people, and we can see it on full display with that movie. Another very interesting thing would be how extreme people are. They can be a message of religion being wrong if misunderstood or used in a wrong way, and that was kind of cool. Maybe I'm crazy there, just maybe. And again, I mentioned it, but the baby not crying when coming out, that was a sign that wasn't natural, that wasn't normal. And it's interesting, and even the way the baby was conceived, because she didn't get intercourse or anything, that's another thing that's telling. It's not natural. It's weird.
Well, unclear.
Unclear. Okay,
just like the other movie, like, she's a bit drugged and she has like glimpses of memory, so it's not 100% clear.
Okay. I will say that you mentioned music earlier. I in my notes I got music somewhere saying music during chore was saying how playful it must have felt. Does that ring a bell for any of you? The playful music during the chore, because there was a chore sequence at some point.
Yeah.
Am I crazy?
It does ring a bell.
It does ring a bell.
Yeah.
Okay. It does ring a bell. Gray, does it?
Sadly, it's been like 10 months since I've seen this. I wish I had viewed it again, especially like right after watching the first Omen, but I don't remember the music in this one as much, where in the first Omen it's standing out to me a little bit more. But yeah, I do remember the chore scene and the music playing there, but I couldn't tell you exactly what it was.
Okay. Well, what else? I have no issues with that movie. Guys probably guessed it at that point. And I think that movie was very good at showing a lot of things. Sometimes I do complain, oh, they tell you instead of showing. They do exposition dumb, but this movie, it wasn't the case. I think most of the storytelling was shown. They also explained a few things, but I think it was a very visual movie, and I like that. people being surprised that the main character being a nun at her age, uh, that was interesting because it's indeed unusual. Because especially with today's, I think at some point they're like, maybe that was the first omen, maybe I mix up both, but uh, they said,
Yeah, they're both American nuns.
yeah. What else? What else? Well, I said it. I enjoyed the music a lot throughout the movie, and um, yeah, the main character losing her teeth. It guys were right about the baby sucking out the life force out of her. So yeah, I don't have a lot more to say because guys did go on a lot about what was going on with that movie. I just like that movie. It's a solid movie, and I think it's in my top 20 or 30 of this year, and I've seen like 113 movies. I can't remember where exactly it stands, but I it's in the higher end for me in the movies of 2024. So I will ask to the both of you, do you want to add anything else to Immaculate?
Sydney Sweeney can pull off pregnant quite well. Where I questioned the other girl. Now I'm forgetting her name, but not that it was a bad performance, but Nell Tiger Free, who played Margaret in the first Omen, I don't know that it was quite as believable that all of a sudden she was pregnant. Like, I don't know. I guess we'll get to it in that next one. But I thought Sydney Sweeney pulled it off quite well. I thought,
Yep.
She could be pregnant.
And I will also second your opinion. I also think I liked Immaculate more than First Omen, but they're not that far apart in my books. They are like in the same kind of realm of movies. But I remember liking more Immaculate, and unlike both of you, I think the pacing was kind of perfect. I don't see how they could expand for like half an hour what was going on, but sometimes I'm crazy and I have weird takes, so maybe it's what's going on there.
It's not
So
the whole thing. It's
I just
kind of
want to
just
know.
that third act.
Yeah, I just want to know why Frank Zappa was playing that priest. Because as far as I know, Frank Zappa's been dead for 30 years.
I mean, it's a pretty good stash, though.
Yeah.
so I will give this movie a 10 out of 10. Masterpiece. What about you, Superbald?
I actually remembered something else that I did not write in my notes. At some point when when Sydney Sweeney she's talking to the priest in the confessional, and when she says, like, I figure out what's going on, blah 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 blah, and he says, if we're not doing God's will, why hasn't he stopped us? And I'm gonna throw back in their face what religious people say all the time, because God gave humans free will.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's I'm gonna give this a grade of 7.5. It's a good movie, and I thought it could be better. I thought the first Omen I liked it a bit better, but Sydney Sweeney definitely gave a much stronger performance than Nell Tiger Free did in the other movie.
I'm with you on that. Maybe that's one of the factors why I preferred Immaculate than First Omen. What about you, Gray?
Yeah. So I was just looking over kind of the IMDb, and I didn't quite give Sydney Sweeney enough credit. So not only did she auditioned for it in 2014 when she was 17, but the project just never materialized. But later on, she did take the role of producer and then reached out to the writer, had him age up everything, had him kind of bring the script a little bit more up to date. Then she hired the director. Then she found financiers. Then she actually sold the film herself to Neon as well. So she did so much for this. She did all the leg work for every part of this, as well as carrying it with the performance. So yeah, just hell yeah. I want to see what Sydney Sweeney does next, especially if it's something that she's actually passionate about. But I think
I'm
I
with
agree.
you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I'm not with you. It is not a 10 out of 10. It is not a perfect movie, but I don't know. I think I'm with Superbald. The parts of this really stick out to me. That whole sequence at the end, everything that it brings up, just man, that has really stuck with me over these last like 10 months. I think I'm at like a 7.5 for the movie, but it has some really memorable parts, and it is one of the more memorable horror movies that I saw last year.
That's interesting, and I'm also surprised. I completely forgot that was Neon. I think Neon and A24 went crazy in 2024. I
They
think
did.
I think some of my favorites movies are Neon or A24, like Longlegs, A Different Man, Immaculate. Like that studio was fire. Heretic, I think that was A24 as well.
A24 was Heretic for sure.
That was crazy year for them. Big respect. So when people complain about Hollywood, go watch like smaller studios like A24, and it's interesting and weird at the same time because I've been watching. And we will go on a small tangent before going to the first Omen, but I am watching Sean Baker filmography, and I just realized A24 was around in 2015. That's surprising. I
Yeah,
thought
they've been
that
around for a while. I think Hereditary put them on the map for horror. I think before that they were just kind of known as like artsy films.
that surprised me when I had seen it. And I did see Hereditary, but I forgot when that movie was made. Like 2012, 2016.
I want to say 17, but I'm looking it up.
That
2018.
was
Sorry.
that was a cool movie. But again, I was surprised to see a Sean Baker movie. Like I think that was the Florida Project or Tangerine. I can't remember which one of the two was A24, but I know one of these two was, and that was surprising. So I guess that's enough for the small tangent, and I will let Gray start with the first Omen.
Okay. So I don't dislike the first Omen, but it's got a few things going for it that Immaculate didn't. First off, it is a legacy horror. It is a franchise. I think there's 5 other films in the Omen series. One of them's a remake. But yeah, they significantly fall off after the first one for me. Some people like the remake. I think Julia Stiles is the mother. Yeah. So this one, it's also a I guess American nun who goes to Italy, which is very odd that there's 2 of them with that same story. I mean, interesting, but yeah. So with the $30 million, the over 3 times the budget that this one has, they were able to secure some really awesome actors. I love the fact that Bill Nye is in this. Charles Dance is like amazing. And then I love Ralph Ineson and anything that dude is in. Like his voice is just amazing. And I got to give props to.
At first, I thought it was Alan Rickman, but I can't be because he's been dead for like what 4 or 5 years now. But
I think it's closer to like 10.
Yeah, but then when I saw his face, I'm like, I can't remember where I've seen him, but okay, I know I've seen this guy somewhere else, and I've heard his voice before.
So he was in The Northman. He's basically in every one of I'm blanking Robert Eggers' films. So you'll see him somewhere, but I think that's the only one that you saw of his. But yeah, that dude, his voice is just unmistakable. I always love seeing that dude in whatever he's in. But I thought he did a great job as kind of the I don't know, the only good guy in this film. But man, there's some interesting choices that they made with this. So marketing on this really rubbed me wrong. It was basically saying this is the scariest movie you'll ever see. And I don't know that this lives up to that.
Not really.
yeah, there's like two parts of it that are kind of jump scares. Other than that, it's just kind of creepy imagery. And I don't know, like everybody is into a different type of horror. That's not necessarily my type of horror. That's usually not what gets me. I guess I do like some jump scares and everything, but yeah, this one, the only parts that I remember being kind of creepy were the two jump scares where um I guess it didn't do the traditional thing where it's like this giant like sound boost with it, where it just kind of is an explosion sound to really make you jump. It was just kind of creepiness where all of a sudden like her habit turns into a person in the corner of the room, and then there's also the kind of laughing from the corner of the room, and then it becomes the nun that dispersed of herself earlier. So I've got a couple of issues with this one that I'm not sure if you guys would necessarily have if you're not familiar with the first Omen, or excuse me, the original The Omen. So they retconned a couple of things, and then there's quite a few scenes in this that are almost like replays or a reimagining of a scene from The Omen. Like, for instance, when that one nun does combust and then jump. That is very reminiscent of like the most shocking and horrifying scene from the original. But it pales in comparison. Just there happens to be a character who does a very similar thing. They do take it up a notch in this one in that they added fire, but man, it's scarring. It's an image that I can't get out of my head from the original, The Omen. Just man, the delivery from the person who does it, and then the fact that they okay, I guess I'll be spoiling it a little bit. So a nanny
No, it's fine.
decides to take their life, and they're doing it at this child's birthday party, and while she's doing it, she says, "It's all for you, Damien." Just the delivery of that has stuck with me since I was a child. Like I don't know, I probably saw this when I was like 10. I can still tell you exactly how she is like, "It's all for you, Damien." It's just, man, like it gets you, and it sticks with you. I gotta say, as jarring as this was to see somebody kind of do a version of that, it is nowhere near as impactful as it was in the original. And then there's a couple other scenes that are almost like beat for beat. And then just a kind of a rip-off of the original. I guess it would be homage now. It's part of the same franchise, but it doesn't feel like it's done as well. The opening, so with the stained glass window and the pipe, the construction pipe or whatever that falls and ends up wounding Charles Dance. I don't know. There's very similar things. So it's kind of two of them, two deaths from the Omen combined to make that one. There is a priest who kind of gets taken out by a pole, and then there is also a sheet of glass, which also takes somebody out. Just both of those were way more impactful in the first one. But I like a lot of the stuff that they're doing on their own in this particular one. There's so many kind of amazing ideas. I just wish they were a little bit more fleshed out and just a little bit more original. Some parts of it really didn't work for me. Like, suddenly this guy gets pinned to the wall and she hugs him, but doesn't notice that she's literally holding his entire weight up. And then you get the reveal once the camera pulls back that, like, okay, he's got no lower half. The upper half of a body weighs so much. There's no way that she wouldn't know and she wouldn't be straining. Like, that to me, like, I get it. It looks kind of fun, but at the same point, like, it just becomes unbelievable. I would know that I've picked up, like, even a small person, I would know that I picked up half of their body and was the only thing holding them up. But I guess she's supposed to be in shock or whatever. So I don't know. Some of the car crashes in this looked really amazing. I really like the way that they were able to use the camera in this with that 3 times the budget. man, they were able to make some really beautiful shots. And then it looks like a lot of the locations that they had were just gorgeous. A lot of these, I'm not sure if they actually filmed in churches or if they just found really opulent looking rooms or recreated it, but man, it looked awesome. I do see that they filmed in Rome, so I'm assuming they went on location instead of going to Rome to build a fake church. Maybe. I don't exactly know. But I thought it just looked gorgeous, and I thought a lot of the camera shots were quite gorgeous. The sound in this was really amazing. So the score is similar to the score from the first one, but they definitely did their own thing. And man, those kind of vaguely church choiry notes that they just kind of keep stabbing in the score, just, man, they really work for me. I loved the score to this whole thing. My final real critique of it, they really retcon a huge part of it. So it's kind of the ending of it. It's supposed to lead directly into the original Omen. So they show you the mother that birthed Damien in the first one, and it is not this lady. So I guess you could do some sort of headcanon. So they dig up the grave of I don't want to ruin too much of it for you guys, but they dig up a grave and they see that it is not a human creature. It is perhaps the same creature that we see burning in when they burn everything down at the end of this. It's a much smaller version of that, but they straight up tell us in that first one that is the mother of this child, that it did not come from a human, which is interesting because in this one we have that she straight up gave birth to twins. So in the other one there weren't twins as well. So now we've got a girl baby and we've got Damien. So it seems like they're going to go to a next one where they're going to go like the second Omen or something like that. And then I'm not sure how they're going to do it, if Damien is like the dark and this girl is the light, or what exactly is going to happen, or if she has any powers. They kind of explore the powers of Damien in the next few, but that first one is just kind of amazing, and it goes out of this fear that everyone kind of had of that time, that they were like secret Satanists, and they were actually Satanists in that first one, where here they're not. It turns out they're just very devout Catholics who are sad that people are turning away from the faith, and they think if they give them an actual enemy, then people will come back to the faith, which doesn't really make sense to me. I liked the more Rosemary's Baby thing, like, we're just trying to get the devil to be born because we worship him. That to me makes way more sense than, I want to trick you by making an evil that you can actually hate, then you'll come to the side of good. To me, I'm not sure that works. So those are like my main...
especially the way they're describing it is like, we're trying to make the Antichrist, but the Antichrist light,
Yeah.
We're the Antichrist, but not the actual Antichrist, just evil enough that you'll scare people into coming back.
Those seem like retcons to me, and it takes away a little bit where I think if this wasn't connected, I think this might be a better film to me. I might, definitely put this above Immaculate. That just everything about it, except for Sydney Sweeney's performance, it does seem like that it is kind of the bigger budget version of it. Just with those little tweaks to the original one, it makes me feel like they're trying to start a new franchise. Like, now we're going to need to see, okay, what happens to this mother? Where does she go after this? What happens with the daughter? We know Damien's story because that is the Omen, but what happens with this other part? And I assume they're going to make a sequel now, and then we're going to see. But aside from that, I really like this film. I wish a couple other things squared up a little bit more. I believe this was also a first-time director. I'm blanking on her name. It's Arkosh Stevenson. I think, yeah, so she had only done a bunch of TV shows and then some shorts, but this was her first actual movie. I thought it was amazing for a first-time director. I never would have pegged that all of this was a first-time director. It seems like somebody who had a really good handle on what they wanted and what they were able to put on frame. But Yeah. I just wish a couple of changes weren't made to the continuity. But like I was saying, I think this is my second favorite Omen film. It is definitely better than all of the sequels. But yeah, those little changes just kind of ruin it a little bit for me. But I'm a nitpicker, so that's my problem with it.
I'm worse at nitpicks than you. Um, I guess I will go second on that one. And I will sound like a broken record because I have no issue with that one as well. I really enjoyed a lot that movie. That was a very fun flick. Uh, so yeah, let's take a look. So I think there was a nice message about the youth losing the church trust, and it's kind of funny that their idea is let's create a bad guy so they get faith again. That was weird, but I enjoyed the idea because they're the bad guys. Their ways don't always work, because they're the bad guys. The other thing I will say is the youth desire to rebel was also well shown, and I also think each time you see the spiders crawling over the main character by night was a way to tell the viewer the main character may be wicked because of her experiences. And I wasn't sure, so I did some research to kind of back out what I said, and I think this is what was going on there. I might be crazy. Am I crazy, Gray? Gray?
No, that's definitely one way that you can interpret it. Yeah, I think they tried to do a bunch of things that I think they were trying to just give creepy images, but I think you could definitely read that into it. I think perhaps you might be giving it a little bit more credit than they did, but maybe I'm giving it less credit than it deserves. I'm not sure. It's open to interpretation.
Yeah, and the other thing I will say is it was very interesting how the main character was driven nuts because of isolation, because she was isolated and all, and that's kind of cool. That was interesting. What else? I thought the music was good. Again, they chose very well, and you kind of said it. It felt like Immaculate, but with more money involved. Uh, but again, I think they are kind of on par, but Immaculate would have a small edge over that one in my books. Um, and the lore aspect, I thought they really tried to flesh out very well everything, and the lore about other church being villainous was kind of cool as well. Um, so yeah, again, this movie, just like Immaculate, was very competent and very good at showing stuff. And this is what we want from movies. We want cool visuals. And I unfortunately don't have a lot more to say. Really cool movie. I liked it from start to finish. Um, yeah, I will let Superbald go on that one.
Well, I went into this one blind, just like I did with Immaculate, and it's only after like maybe 10 minutes that I realized, oh, this is a similar subject. And then as the movie went on, I'm like, well, this is almost the exact same movie. um, as we've mentioned, this had a much bigger budget than Immaculate, and it shows. So it has much better production values. But as I said earlier, I think Sydney Sweeney gave the superior performance. So the first Omen has lost points there. So and I didn't know any of the actors in this movie, with the exceptions of Bill Nighy and Charles Dance. Two actors I really like, especially Charles Dance. I love seeing him in anything. He's a great actor. Nell Tiger Free, I think she gave a competent performance. But as Gray said, like she didn't quite sell the pregnancy as much as Sydney Sweeney. So again, this movie, bigger budget, so it had, I find better cinematography. better, just better production values in general. But that can only go so far. I think I enjoyed it a little more than I did Immaculate, but that doesn't mean I think it's a better movie. I think they're kind of really on par if you take everything into consideration. Um, I'm evaluating it on its own though, just because I haven't seen any other movies in the Omen franchise. Um, Although while Gray was talking, though, I just looked up the Omen on IMDb, and I saw that Patrick Troughton was actually in that movie. He played the father Brennan, I believe. That intrigues me. I would love, so I think I might move it up to the top of my watch list because Patrick Troughton, he was the second person ever to play the Doctor in Doctor Who. So I'd be curious to see him in this. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about the first Omen.
Well, I would definitely recommend seeing The Omen because, man, with Gregory Peck and Lee Remick, just
Well, that's another.
is...
Yeah, I forgot to mention Gregory Peck. I saw like the cast list. I'm like, oh, I'm a big Gregory Peck fan as well.
Well, and there's this like weird curse about the movie, or at least people say it was a
Yeah,
very
because there's
cursed
a lot of
production.
people. I believe one of the little girl in the movie died a few years later, and I think a few other people involved with the movie had some met some rather unfortunate ends in subsequent years.
Yeah, and Gregory Peck, I believe he lost a kid either just before they started filming or like right as they started
Oh
filming.
wow! Okay, I
And
didn't know
then
that.
he had to, yeah, and he had to do all these scenes with Damien. And then the, I can't remember if he was the special effects guy. A guy got a very special effect, practical effect done where there's a plate of glass that it meets with somebody's neck at one point. And right after they had wrapped on the film, he was actually driving with his girlfriend in the car. Somehow, I believe it was a piece of sheet metal flew off a car in front of them, and it completely also met with her
Wow!
neck.
Oh
There's a
wow!
lot of weird things that are kind of
Oh,
cursed with this. And actually, for the first Omen, Ralph Ineson, the dude with the amazing voice, he was actually supposed to come in for rehearsals, and he was attacked by a dog.
oh wow!
Never been
Okay.
attacked by a dog before, but
Mhm.
yeah, he had to go to the hospital because
Huh.
random attack from a dog. And then dogs factor in very heavily, especially Dobermans. Was it Dobermans? No, I'm blanking. Maybe it was Rottweilers. Excuse me. Factor in quite heavily in the Omen. Um, they're seen as the protectors of Damien. So it's just an interesting thing and a very cursed production. But it's unlike any other movie. They were kind of, it's got Gregory Peck. They take it a little bit more serious than a lot of other things. But a couple things about the first Omen. I didn't praise Nell Tiger Free's performance. She is awesome as Margaret. I really do like her performance, especially like right after that car crash where she gets kind of possessed or whatever. Just,
Yeah,
man, the
true.
movements, the
Definitely.
jerkiness there,
Hmm.
it was awesome. I don't know that I would have believed that she was pregnant in that moment, but they kind of do something supernatural and then distend her belly. So the, it works, but I think Sydney Sweeney was a little bit more believable as being pregnant in there. But I didn't realize that I'd seen Nell Tiger Free and other things. She plays one of the Baratheons in Game of Thrones, but she's a blonde. I guess she's naturally a blonde. So I don't know. I didn't recognize her at all. She just seems like she is a brunette or has black hair. But man, I didn't realize that I had seen her in other things. She is an awesome actress. So I definitely want to give her some credit for that. And then I don't know if you guys saw all the controversy with this as well. It kept getting an NC-17 rating for this one. It is one shot. It is kind of the devil hand being birthed shot. They kept doing different cuts of that particular scene, and no matter what, the MPAA kept coming back as, no, this is NC-17. And it turns out they have no problem with like the hand being birthed. It was showing anything before that. So they basically had to remove every frame until something was coming out. And then that's just fine, which seems so arbitrary or whatever. The part that would torment me would be, actually seeing that hand, but apparently no issues with the hand. Yeah, so they were barely able to make an R rated for this. Otherwise, it was NC-17 up until like, I can't remember how many times they had to resubmit that scene. But yeah, they just barely squeaked by with an R. And yeah, there's some interesting shots in this. It's got a lot of creepy imagery that kind of has stuck with me as well. Kind of the hands caressing her and what I'm assuming is a tongue, but I'm not 100% certain. Yeah, there's some really creepy imagery in this. I do appreciate what they were able to do, but yeah, just with those couple retcons, it just kind of it ruins it for me because they're taken away from the first Omen and the original The Omen. And man, that film is so amazing. There's like kind of two of them that are classic for me. It's The Exorcist and The Omen. And yeah, sadly they got all of the sequels very wrong on both of those for me. But this is the closest to a good sequel to one of those. I don't dislike this. I wish they hadn't retconned a couple of things. I like there being real Satanists. I don't want to know that they're just trying to get people to come back to the church because of a real evil. That to me doesn't quite work. That's my main issue with it. But yeah, it's not a bad film.
And there's another thing I forgot to mention, I think is of value. The main character was very reluctant to enjoy life. And again, that's because of religion. I feel like these two movies, Immaculate and The First Omen, they are very good at saying how bad religion can be if taken in a wrong direction, like these two movies did.
One of the tenets of the Catholic religion is suffering is love.
And it's partially true, but don't push it too far. That's what I think. And again, that movie sold it. I second agree by saying it's a cool movie. I really liked it. I'm wondering if any of you have anything else to say about The First Omen.
Not really. As I mentioned earlier, I think I'm going to move the original Omen to the top of my watch list. Based on what I read and what Gray has mentioned, I'm very intrigued. So, but as far as the first Omen, no, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, Gray.
Yeah, it really makes me want to watch The Omen again. It's been way too long since I've seen that. So I second what Superbald said. I'm moving it way up there on my watch list. That movie just does some amazing things, and it was just able to, like I said, there's one scene that just sticks with me. But yeah, I guess I'm excited to see the second Omen. I'm just assuming there's going to be a next one. This didn't ruin anything for me to where I will never watch this or anything. Like I'm gonna watch the next one when it comes out. I guess I want to see what female Damien does, but yeah, it feels like this could have been so much better. I wish they hadn't retconned a couple of things. If it wasn't for that, this would be much higher on my list.
Did they made enough money for a studio to be like, there's money to be made with a sequel?
I'm assuming so. So it had a 30 million budget and they made 53, so they didn't quite double it. I guess the ad campaign on this was kind of extensive. So for the first trailer, all they did was show scenes in reverse order. So it was kind of interesting. Like, I think even if you go to IMDb, I think that's the trailer that plays. All of a sudden you see everybody kind of walking backwards. It's just a bunch of backwards footage. It was a bold choice. And I think they put the advertisement everywhere. So often I hear it's about double the budget for, like advertisement and everything. So maybe they didn't quite break even, but yeah, 53 on a $30 million budget. Maybe there won't be one, but it's getting a lot of praise. A lot of people were saying that it was one of the scarier ones of last year. So I think we're going to see another one. But sorry, Miss Sparkles. They didn't make the Antichrist a female in this one. They didn't fully retcon that, but the mother that birthed Damien had a second. Damien was twins. There was a girl born as well, and they have not explained what the implications of that are. I'm assuming that would be the next movie.
Okay, so Yuri, what would be your grade out of 10?
I think again, if it wasn't for these couple of like retcon things, I think it'd be much higher for me. I think it would probably even be higher than Immaculate. But as it is, I think I enjoy Immaculate a little bit more. So I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay, what about you, Superbald?
Um, I enjoyed this one a little bit more than Immaculate, but I still think the two movies are kind of on par with each other. If you factor in everything, budget, things like that, what they were able to pull off, performances, they kind of equal. So I gave 7.5 to Immaculate. I'm going to give this one also 7.5.
That's interesting. As usual, I will sound crazy. I gave this movie a 10 out of 10, just like Immaculate, but I think I would place Immaculate a bit higher. I think the shorter runtime is what made me push toward Immaculate. I still feel like there's a bit more messaging going on with the first Omen, and there's more depth to it, but I just like short movies, I guess. An hour and a half is more than enough for me if you're entertaining during your hour and a half. So yeah, I guess we are now going to the some kind of outro here. What do you have going on your end of the internet, Superbald?
Same old. This podcast every week.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. What about you, Gary?
This podcast, definitely check out this podcast if you're not checking out this podcast. But aside from that, I am finally releasing my top 10 good movies, worst movies, and surprises of 2024. It's just taking me way too long to get those out. They will actually be out this week. So, yeah, look forward to those. Other than that, nothing really. What you got going on, Multi?
Yesterday I talked about Wolfman, a movie that came out Friday. That was a horror flick, and I enjoyed it. It's rare I will hate something apparently. Outside of that, tomorrow we got a tier list video about 2024 movies. I've seen 113 2024 movies, and if Gray is still available tomorrow, he will join me for that, and we will basically place in tiers the movies in that list. I think Gray has seen most of it. Maybe not all 113, but I can bet he has seen at least 90 to 95% of the movies in that list. So that
Definitely a
makes
few
up
I
a lot.
skipped. I'm not
Yeah.
into like the bad movies. I skipped Venom, and if you got Craven on there, I skipped that one. But other than that, we've seen most of the same ones.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And it's funny because Matt will be available Thursday for that. So I will be doing like two streams very similar back to back, one with Gray tomorrow and one that's kind of the same thing but with Matt Thursday. So we will be talking about movies from 2024. And maybe next week I will have a stream about TV shows because I've seen a lot of TV shows in 2024, not just 2024 ones, but a lot of them were 2024 ones, and Gray has seen some of them. But yeah, outside of that, um, next Monday I will talk about Flight Risk and The Prisons. I think these two movies are coming out here in Canada Friday. So that's for Monday, and maybe in the weekend I will be doing gaming stream. So yeah, I don't have a lot more going on outside of that. And thank you guys. As usual, Tuesdays are the best days. I'm just having a
Absolutely.
blast. I'm having a blast talking about movies with the both of you.
I look
Um,
forward to it every week.
yeah, and it's a bit unfortunate we didn't add Matt in like 3 weeks, but maybe
Yeah,
we'll
I
come
miss that
back.
dude. I love talking to him.
Matt, if you see that, come back to us. And with that,
Enfin, toi, vieux.
we go to the outro.
Yeah, Red Blue Podcast. Come check the scene. Movies old and new. Know what I mean?